8 hidden signs she's deeply invested but pulling away from fear, psychology tricks. Where there is love, there is life. Mahatma Gandhi. Listen closely because a lot of men get this moment completely backwards. A woman pulls back, and your brain instantly goes to the worst place. She's cold. She's playing me. She's losing interest. So you react like most men do. You panic. You replay every text. You push harder for reassurance. Or you shut down and walk away, telling yourself, I guess I wasn't enough. But here's the twist most guys never learn. Sometimes the very things that look like rejection are actually the fingerprints of real emotional investment. And there's one specific move women often make, one that men almost always read as, she's done. But in many cases, it means the exact opposite. I'm scared because this is starting to feel real. I'll tell you what that behavior is in a moment. First, you need the missing piece. Men and women often experience attraction on different fear timelines. When a man is into a woman, his instinct is usually simple: move forward. He leans in. He pursues. He tries to lock it in. But when a woman starts to feel deeply connected, especially emotionally, her first reflex is often self-protection. Because the deeper she feels, the more exposed she becomes. And vulnerability doesn't feel romantic in the nervous system. It can feel dangerous. The more she likes you, the more she has to lose. The more you matter, the more power you have to hurt her, whether you mean to or not. So instead of rushing closer, she may slow things down. She may create space, not to punish you, not to manipulate you, but to check one thing: are you stable, or are you only confident when you're being fed attention? This is the moment where many good men fail, not because they're weak, but because they misread the signal. They see her self-protection and label it disinterest. They take the wall personally, and they leave right when she was starting to consider letting them in for real. Now here's the situation you've probably lived through. She takes longer to reply. Sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's a day. She's not always eager when you suggest plans. When you're together, she can act almost too calm, like she's trying not to show her hand, and your mind fills in the blanks with fear. She's not that into me. I'm wasting my time. I should move on before I get played. But here's a truth that clears up a lot. A woman who truly doesn't care usually doesn't create deep confusion. Indifference is clean. It fades. It disappears. No emotional pull. No weight in your chest. No "what are we?" energy. Confusion often comes from something more complicated than disinterest, like interest mixed with fear, desire mixed with caution, connection mixed with past pain. So the real question becomes, how do you tell the difference between a woman who's protecting herself and a woman who's simply not interested? That's exactly what we're going to break down. And one of the signs is so counterintuitive, you might reject it at first. But once you see the pattern, you'll never unsee it. Sign number 1, she remembers everything you say. Sign number 1 is subtle, almost quiet, yet incredibly telling. She remembers everything you say, not just the headline moments, but the throwaway lines, the passing comments, the details you barely noticed when you spoke them, the childhood story you mentioned once without drama, the meal you casually said you liked after a long day, the coworker you complained about and then forgot you ever brought up. This is where most men underestimate what's happening. When a woman is emotionally invested, she doesn't merely listen. She catalogs, she connects dots, she builds a living, breathing mental portrait of you, and that portrait grows richer over time. So don't dismiss it as coincidence. Don't brush it off as luck. Don't assume she does this with everyone. She doesn't, not even close. That kind of memory requires energy, and energy is only spent where there is meaning. That is female psychology at work. Quiet, but intentional. When she brings up something you said weeks or even months ago, especially something small, something that offered her no advantage in remembering, that is not casual recall. That is emotional focus. And here's the part most men miss. Memory is not about intelligence here. It's about investment. The mind remembers what the heart prioritizes. Be observant. Be calm. Be honest with yourself. If she remembers the small things, you are not background noise. You are a central character in her inner world. And yet, paradoxically, this is often the same woman who may start pulling back just a little, responding slower, guarding her emotions, hesitating when things feel like they're getting real. That contradiction confuses men, but it shouldn't. Fear doesn't erase interest, it restrains it. This is where psychology tricks and awareness matter. Her memory shows her emotional side leaning in. Her distance shows her protective side applying the brakes. You must not panic here. Don't chase. Don't interrogate. Don't demand clarity too soon. That is not strength. That is pressure. Instead, understand what's happening beneath the surface. She's measuring safety. She's checking consistency. She's asking herself whether leaning in further will cost her peace. Every remembered detail is proof that you already matter. So don't perform. Don't over-explain. Be steady. Be present. Be predictable in the best way. Grounding creates safety, and safety allows feelings to grow without fear. That is female psychology in motion. Here's the deeper layer most men never consider. Remembering details is also a form of bonding rehearsal. She's replaying you in her mind when you're not around, testing how you fit into her emotional life. This is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks of attraction. People don't fall in love all at once. They fall in love in private moments of reflection. Every time she recalls something you said, she strengthens that internal bond. So don't sabotage it by being inconsistent or reactive. Don't suddenly change your tone. Don't flood her with intensity. Be grounded. This is how to fall in love in a way that lasts, not by forcing closeness, but by allowing it to feel natural and earned. It may feel strange to realize that the woman who remembers your favorite snack might also hesitate to fully open up. But that's not mixed signals. That's emotional depth meeting caution. If you understand this, you gain clarity without confrontation, confidence without arrogance, insight without manipulation. This is how psychology tricks should be used, not to control, but to understand. Remember this clearly. Attention is currency. Memory is investment. Investment means value. Don't second guess what's already being shown to you. Don't underestimate quiet signs. Don't ignore the power of being remembered. In female psychology, memory is often the first doorway to attachment. If you handle it with patience and self-respect, you won't need to push her closer. She'll move there on her own. And that, more than anything else, is how to fall in love the right way. Sign number 2, she tests you. Sign number 2 is the one that trips most men up. She tests you. Quietly, strategically. Sometimes she says she's busy when you sense she really isn't. Sometimes she acts surprisingly indifferent when the topic of other women comes up. Sometimes she throws subtle challenges your way, a delayed reply, a cooler tone, a moment where she steps back just enough to see what you'll do next. This is the sign that frustrates most men because it feels backward. You think, if she likes me, why is she making this harder? That question is natural, but it's also the wrong one. She's not testing your interest. She already knows you're interested. She's testing your emotional stability. That is the shift you must understand. She's asking questions without speaking them out loud. Can you stay calm under pressure? Can you remain grounded when certainty is removed? Are you confident without constant reassurance? Do you actually see her as a person, or are you chasing validation to soothe your own doubts? That is what's really happening here. A woman who doesn't care won't test you at all. She won't poke. She won't challenge. She won't step back to observe. She'll simply fade out. Silence replaces curiosity. Distance replaces engagement. Tests only appear when there is emotional investment growing beneath the surface. Here's the part most men miss, and missing it changes everything. The intensity of her tests often reflects how deeply she's starting to feel. The more something matters, the more carefully it's examined. That's not cruelty, that's caution. When emotions rise, risk rises with them. She's not trying to control you, she's trying to assess safety. Emotional safety, psychological safety, consistency, and whether you can hold your center when things aren't perfectly smooth. That is why this sign separates men who panic from men who attract women naturally. Don't react emotionally. Don't rush to explain yourself. Don't chase clarity the moment uncertainty appears. That behavior doesn't signal care. It signals fragility. Be calm. Be steady. Be self-contained. That is masculine energy in its healthiest form. Not loud, not forceful, grounded. When you remain composed while she tests you, you show her something words never could. You show her that your confidence isn't dependent on her approval. You show her that you are a high-value man who doesn't crumble when the environment shifts slightly. Consider this. When she says she's busy, she's watching your response. Do you become impatient? Do you guilt her? Do you overextend to regain attention? Or do you respect her space and continue living your life with purpose? When she seems indifferent about other women, she's observing whether you fish for reassurance or remain secure in your own worth. When she challenges you subtly, she's seeing whether you rise to the moment calmly or get pulled into emotional turbulence. This isn't a game, it's a filter. You must understand something crucial. Attraction doesn't grow in chaos, it grows in contrast. When her emotions fluctuate and yours remain stable, that contrast creates trust. When she feels uncertainty and you respond with clarity, that creates safety. This is how you attract women without effort. Not by performing, not by persuading, but by embodying consistency. That consistency is what defines a high-value man, and it's felt long before it's ever labeled. Here's another layer most men never consider. These tests are also her way of slowing things down without shutting things off. She's managing her own fear of getting attached too quickly, fear of misjudging, fear of losing emotional balance. By testing you, she's buying time to feel safer. And if you fail the test by reacting impulsively, you confirm her fear. If you pass by staying grounded, you ease it. Be aware of this. Tests aren't invitations to prove yourself. They're opportunities to reveal yourself. Don't overtalk, don't overpromise, don't try to win. Be, that is all. Calm presence beats clever strategy every time. This is where masculine energy becomes magnetic. Quiet certainty, emotional self-control, a sense that you're solid whether she leans in or steps back. And let's be clear, passing these tests doesn't mean tolerating disrespect. It means distinguishing between genuine disrespect and emotional caution. Subtle challenges are not rejection. They're curiosity with a seatbelt on. A woman who feels nothing doesn't bother checking. She leaves. A woman who feels something checks twice, sometimes 3 times. That's human nature. If you respond correctly, something shifts. Her tests soften. Her distance shortens. Her warmth returns, often stronger than before. Not because you chased it, but because you earned trust without demanding it. That's how attraction deepens. That's how you attract women who are emotionally invested but cautious. That's how a high-value man stands out without announcing himself. So remember this. Don't confuse tests with disinterest. Don't confuse distance with detachment. Don't confuse challenge with rejection. Be composed. Be observant. Be unwavering in who you are. That is masculine energy done right. And when you master this, you won't fear her tests anymore. You'll recognize them for what they are. A sign that she's feeling more than she's ready to admit, and she's watching closely to see if you're the kind of man who can handle it. If this hit home, don't scroll past it. This is the moment to lock it in. She's not testing your feelings, she's testing your calm, your confidence, your ability to stay grounded when pressure shows up. So if you understand that, drop a comment right now and say, I stay calm, I stay centered, I don't chase. Like this video, subscribe for more psychology tricks that sharpen your awareness, and remind yourself daily, tests don't push real men away. They reveal who's ready to lead with strength and clarity. Sign number 3. Her friends know about you, even if she plays it cool with you. Sign number 3 cuts deeper than most men realize, and if you understand it, you stop guessing and start seeing clearly. Her friends know about you, even when she pretends you're just nothing special. If her friends know your name, your work, your past, your direction in life, you've already crossed a line most men never reach, because women do not bring casual men into private conversations. They talk about what matters, what moves them, what stirs emotion, and when you show up in those conversations, you're already inside her inner world, whether she admits it or not. This is not romance fantasy. This is human psychology. And as Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul, which means she may hide her feelings from you long before she hides them from her closest circle. If her friends have analyzed you, debated your intentions, or formed opinions, you're no longer background noise. You're a subject of concern and curiosity, and that alone tells you she's invested, even if fear makes her step back. Here's where older men gain an edge. When her friends suddenly seem distant, quiet, or protective around you, many men panic and assume rejection, but experience teaches the opposite, because that shift often means she has admitted she likes you and they are guarding her emotions, not judging your worth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Old Stoic wisdom, the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts, and right now, her thoughts about you have color, weight, and emotional charge, which is why fear enters the picture. Fear doesn't appear where nothing matters. Fear appears where loss would hurt. In modern life, especially in a world of fast dating, shallow attention, and endless options, genuine emotional investment feels risky. So when she pulls back slightly while her friends know everything, it's not confusion, it's internal conflict. This is where you apply stoicism when thinking and develop an iron mind, because the man who reacts emotionally loses ground, while the man who stays calm, steady, and self-directed becomes the safe place she can move toward again. Do not confront. Do not demand reassurance. Do not chase explanations. Lead with presence. Lead with consistency. Lead with quiet strength. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And bravery here means resisting the urge to force clarity when time and composure will reveal far more. Her friends knowing you is evidence. Their behavior shifting is data. Your job is interpretation, not reaction. In a culture that teaches men to overtext, overanalyze, and overperform, your advantage comes from restraint, from measured action, from old Stoic wisdom applied to modern dating dynamics. Keep building your life. Keep your standards. Keep your direction visible. When you embody stoicism, win energy, you send a signal without words. You are not desperate for approval. You are grounded in purpose, and that steadiness eases her fear more than any conversation ever could. Remember, women don't protect what they don't value, and friends don't guard emotions that don't exist. Let that sink in. Repeat it. Internalize it. An iron mind doesn't rush. An iron mind observes. An iron mind understands that emotional investment often shows up sideways before it shows up directly. As Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. So decide now to be the man who sees patterns instead of chasing feelings. In modern life, where relationships collapse under pressure and impatience, mastery comes from emotional discipline, and victory comes from clarity. This is how you master attraction without manipulation. This is how you move through uncertainty without losing yourself. This is how Stoicism win principles turn confusion into confidence. Stand firm, stay calm, let time work for you. When her friends know about you, you're already closer than you think, and with old Stoic wisdom, an iron mind, and controlled action, you position yourself not as a question mark, but as a man worth choosing. Sign number 4, she gets emotional around you. Sign number 4 is the moment most men misunderstand and quietly walk away from something that actually matters. She gets emotional around you, and not in the polished movie scene way you were taught to expect. This is where things turn uncomfortable, and yes, even controversial, because her emotions don't always arrive wrapped in sweetness. She snaps over small things. She goes quiet, then sharp, when you don't text back fast enough. She looks bothered when another woman's name casually enters the conversation. Don't panic. Don't label it as drama. Don't assume you're losing ground. That is the mistake. The psychological truth most men never learn is simple and relentless. Emotion equals investment. Indifference is calm, distant, and silent. Emotion is loud because it has something at stake. Anger, jealousy, frustration, and disappointment don't come from nowhere. They come from caring. They come from attachment. They come from a nervous system that has decided, often before her logic catches up, that you matter. Be clear about this. A woman who feels nothing will not react at all. She won't question your timing. She won't care who you're talking to. She won't feel a pull when you pull away. Emotion is not the problem. Misreading it is. Most men were never taught female psychology, so when emotions surface, they try to fix, retreat, or defend. Don't do that. Be steady. Be grounded. You must understand that when she reacts emotionally, she is revealing vulnerability, not trying to control you. This is where psychology tricks quietly work in your favor, not because you manipulate, but because you stop sabotaging connection. Here's the deeper layer almost no one talks about. Fear often hides inside emotion. When she snaps or withdraws after showing feeling, it's not because she doesn't care, but because she cares more than she planned to. That internal conflict creates friction. She wants closeness, then fears losing herself or getting hurt, so she tests distance. She pulls back. That push-pull confuses men, but it is one of the clearest patterns in female psychology when attraction turns into attachment. Don't chase the emotion away, don't punish it. Stay consistent. Calm presence is powerful. That is how trust forms. And now for the emotional reaction men misinterpret more than any other, the one that actually signals she's falling for you. Disappointment, not rage, not jealousy, disappointment. When she looks deflated instead of angry, when her energy drops instead of spikes, when she goes quiet not to punish you, but because she expected more, that is deep investment revealing itself. Disappointment means she had a future moment imagined with you and felt it slip. That doesn't happen without emotional buy-in. You must recognize this. Don't dismiss it. Don't brush past it. Acknowledge it calmly. Presence matters more than perfection here. This is how to fall in love slowly, safely, and sustainably, not through intensity, but through emotional reliability. When she sees that her emotions don't scare you away, her fear relaxes. When fear relaxes, closeness grows. This is not about being perfect or always available. It's about being predictable in your values and steady in your responses. That steadiness rewires attraction at a deeper level. It's one of the most overlooked psychology tricks because it looks boring from the outside, yet it works because it speaks directly to the nervous system. Remember this, women don't fall in love with words. They fall in love with emotional safety over time. That is female psychology at its core. If you can sit calmly in the presence of her emotions without needing to control them or escape them, you become rare. You become grounding. You become the place where her feelings can land without judgment. And that, quietly and powerfully, is how to fall in love for real. If this opened your eyes and helped you see her emotions in a new light, don't just scroll past it. Be present. Take action. Like this video, share it with a man who needs clarity instead of confusion, and subscribe for more insights into attraction and connection. Then go to the comments and write this sentence to lock the lesson in your mind and signal you're ready to grow. Emotion isn't rejection, it's investment. Sign number 5, she opens up, then closes again. Sign number 5 is subtle, confusing, and often misunderstood, yet it reveals more than grand gestures ever could. She opens up, then closes again. One night, the conversation flows easily. The lights are low. The guard drops. She shares something deeply personal, maybe a fear, maybe a past wound, maybe a truth she rarely lets anyone see. You feel the shift. It feels real. Then the next day arrives, and suddenly she's distant. Short replies, cooler tone, less access. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't assume games. Don't accuse her silence of meaning less. That is the wrong story to tell yourself. This pattern isn't manipulation. This is fear in its most human form. She let you see something real, and now her system is pulling back to protect her. That emotional whiplash has a name. It's a vulnerability hangover, and it happens when someone opens a door they weren't fully prepared to leave open. Be clear about this. When a woman reveals something personal, she doesn't just share information. She exposes identity. She risks judgment. She risks loss. And when the moment passes, fear often rushes in to clean up the mess left behind by honesty. You must understand that the pullback is not rejection. It is self-preservation. The bigger the pullback, the more she revealed than she intended. Fear only shows up where care already exists. Indifference doesn't retreat. It doesn't need to. Only someone emotionally invested feels the need to regroup after being seen. That's the paradox most men miss. They interpret distance as disinterest, when in reality, it can be proof of depth. This is where a high-value man separates himself from the crowd, not by chasing reassurance, but by staying centered. Don't interrogate her. Don't demand explanations. Don't suddenly over-text to fill the silence. Be calm, be grounded, be consistent. That is how you signal safety without saying a word. Masculine energy isn't loud. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It holds space. When you remain steady during her retreat, you communicate something powerful. You can handle closeness without losing yourself. That steadiness is rare, and it's exactly what helps attract women who are emotionally aware but cautious. Many men undo connection here by reacting instead of responding. They push for clarity when patience would speak louder. They seek control when trust would do the work for them. Think of it like this. She stepped into deeper water with you than she planned. It felt good in the moment. Then she realized how deep it was, and her instincts told her to step back to solid ground. That doesn't mean she didn't like the water. It means she felt it. You must let her return at her own pace. Don't pull her back in. Don't shame the retreat. Let her nervous system settle. This is not passivity. This is strength. A high-value man knows when to act and when to allow space to do the heavy lifting. Silence, when paired with consistency, builds trust faster than pressure ever could. Be aware of this truth. When she opens up and then closes again, she's watching closely. She's watching how you handle her vulnerability after the moment has passed. She's watching whether you respect what she shared or use it as leverage. She's watching if your behavior stays the same or shifts with her emotional weather. That observation shapes her sense of safety. That safety determines whether she will open the door again, and next time, a little wider. This is how emotional intimacy grows, not through constant closeness, but through safe distance followed by return. You don't need clever lines here. You don't need reassurance speeches. You need presence, calm presence. That calmness is masculine energy at its most effective, not performative, not forced, just grounded. When you don't flinch at her retreat, you become the place she doesn't have to defend against. That's how you attract women who are thoughtful, self-aware, and serious about connection. And yes, this pattern will repeat. Opening, closing, opening again. Each cycle is a test, not of your worth, but of your stability. Pass the test by not making it about you. Don't confuse emotional pacing with emotional unavailability. One is fear learning to trust. The other is absence. They feel similar on the surface, but they move in opposite directions underneath. If she never opens up at all, that's distance. If she opens up, retreats, and slowly returns, that's progress. You must read the pattern, not the moment. This ability to read emotional rhythm instead of reacting to emotional spikes is what defines a high-value man over time. It's not about control, it's about clarity. Remember this. Attraction deepens where pressure is low and consistency is high. Masculine energy creates a container where vulnerability doesn't feel dangerous. When she realizes that opening up doesn't cost her safety or stability, fear loosens its grip. And when fear loosens, connection strengthens naturally. This is how you attract women without forcing closeness, without chasing reassurance, without losing your center. Stay steady. Be patient. Let her come back on her own terms. That return, when it happens, will be more meaningful than the opening ever was. Sign number 6, she watches your life closely. Sign number 6 cuts deeper than most men realize. It's the one that separates casual interest from real emotional investment. She watches your life closely, quietly, consistently, with a focus that doesn't announce itself but never drifts. When a woman is emotionally invested yet afraid of losing control, her attention becomes disciplined and selective, not loud. She notices when you post. She notices when you don't. She registers timing, tone, patterns, and silence. She asks light questions that sound harmless but are designed to place you in space and time, not to interrogate you but to orient herself emotionally. Attention is never random. Attention is energy. And where energy goes, attachment grows. This is where many men misread the situation and either overreact or retreat too fast, when the truth is far more precise and far more powerful if you understand it through old Stoic wisdom, not modern panic. When she suddenly stops watching your stories, stops liking your posts, stops reacting in ways that once felt automatic, this is not always withdrawal. Often, it is containment, a self-imposed pause, a controlled distance she creates because she feels too much and needs to steady herself. Fear doesn't always run away. Sometimes it stands still to regain balance. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." In this moment, she is trying to reclaim that power, not lose interest, not lose attraction, but regain emotional posture. The mistake men make is chasing the silence, explaining themselves, performing for attention that was never lost. That collapses polarity and erodes respect. The instruction here is simple and it's hard, which is why it works. Do nothing reactive. Stay steady. Keep your life moving forward. Strength is not loud. Strength is consistent. Consistency is the language of trust, especially to someone internally negotiating desire and fear at the same time. Modern life intensifies this dynamic because social media creates constant access without commitment, visibility without vulnerability. When she steps back from watching, she's not disconnecting from you. She's disconnecting from the stimulus so she can process the feeling. The man who wins here is the man who doesn't flinch, who doesn't perform, who doesn't demand reassurance. Calm confidence signals safety. Safety invites return. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." Freedom here means freedom from validation seeking, freedom from decoding every microsignal, freedom from letting algorithms control your emotional state. This is where Stoicism win becomes practical, not philosophical. The iron mind does not chase shadows. It observes patterns over time, and the pattern is clear. Attention followed by restraint often signals deeper investment than attention alone. Your job is not to pull her back into watching you. Your job is to remain a man worth watching, whether she's looking or not. Attraction grows when you are anchored in purpose, not orbiting her reactions. Especially in the second half of life, experience should have taught you this truth. Emotional stability outperforms emotional intensity every time. The advice for modern life is direct. Keep posting if you normally post. Keep living fully if you normally live fully. Don't send indirect messages. Don't test her with absence. Don't weaponize silence. Those are habits of insecurity, not mastery. Mastery is the goal. Mastery of self. Mastery of response. Mastery of rhythm. That is old Stoic wisdom applied today. People regulate when they care. They detach when they don't. Regulation looks like distance with curiosity intact, awareness that never fully shuts off. When you respond with grounded presence instead of emotional noise, you make it safe for her to return on her own terms. That's the only way it ever works long term. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." What you must be here is steady, composed, forward moving. This is how Stoicism win shows up in relationships, not as coldness, as clarity, not as indifference, as strength without pressure. Repeat this until it sticks. Attention doesn't disappear, it concentrates. Fear doesn't erase desire, it tests structure. And the iron mind does not chase, it attracts by standing firm. When you live this way, you don't just navigate relationships better, you master life itself, calmly, clearly, and decisively. If this opened your eyes, take action now. Like the video, subscribe for more psychology-backed relationship insight, and share this with a man who needs clarity instead of confusion. Then lock this lesson into your mind by commenting the line below, because repetition builds mastery and awareness creates control. Comment to remember, silence doesn't always mean disinterest. Sometimes it means deeper feelings under control. Sign number 7, she goes cold after getting close. Sign number 7 is the moment that confuses men the most, the moment that quietly decides everything if you handle it right or wrong. And it's this: she goes cold right after getting close. And yes, this is the point where most men walk away even though they shouldn't, because what felt like momentum suddenly feels like rejection, and the mind rushes to painful conclusions. You had a great date, not small talk, real conversation, eye contact that lingered, laughter that felt easy, maybe even emotional or physical intimacy that felt natural and unforced. Then silence, short replies, distance where warmth used to live, and the instinctive thought hits hard. She regrets it, she lost interest, I pushed too far, I ruined it. Don't fall for that story. That story is fear talking, not truth. Here's what female psychology actually shows when you slow down and look closely. When a woman pulls back after closeness, it's often because the connection landed deeper than she expected. It felt real, it felt risky, and real things carry consequences. She's not running from you. Be clear about this. She's running from the idea that you now matter enough to hurt her. That is a very different reason. Emotional closeness doesn't just create attraction, it creates vulnerability. And vulnerability wakes up old memories, past disappointments, moments where trust came with a cost. So she retreats, not to punish you, not to test you in a childish way, but to breathe, to regain balance, to see if the feelings calm down or grow stronger in the quiet. This is where psychology tricks matter, not manipulation, but understanding. She's watching how you respond when the emotional temperature changes. Will you panic? Will you overtext? Will you demand reassurance? Will you disappear out of pride? Both reactions send the same message: instability. Don't do that. Don't chase harder to force closeness. Don't vanish to protect your ego. You must stay grounded, calm, present. Consistent. This is where how to fall in love quietly reveals itself. Love doesn't grow in pressure. It grows in safety. When you don't flinch, when you don't rush to fill the silence, when you continue living your life with quiet confidence, you show her something rare: emotional steadiness. That steadiness tells her she doesn't have to guard herself so tightly. She sees that closeness doesn't equal chaos. And here's the subtle part most men miss. Her distance is often temporary. It's a pause, not a stop. She's checking her own emotions. She's asking herself if she can trust the direction this is going. And every move you make during this pause either calms her nervous system or confirms her fear. Be the man who calms it. Respond, but don't hover. Care, but don't cling. Be warm without being heavy. That balance speaks louder than any speech. This is female psychology at its core, not games, not tricks in the shallow sense, but deep emotional patterns shaped by experience. Many women learned early that strong feelings can lead to loss, so when feelings rise, the instinct is to step back. If you understand that, you stop taking it personally, you stop reacting emotionally, you start responding intentionally. That's power, that's maturity, and that's exactly what makes her feel safe enough to step forward again. Remember, attraction isn't just about excitement, it's about emotional regulation. When she pulls back and you stay centered, you demonstrate leadership without control, strength without pressure. That is irresistible. Don't explain yourself excessively. Don't ask, "What happened?" 5 different ways. Let your actions do the talking. Keep your tone steady. Keep your life full. Keep your self-respect intact. This is one of the most misunderstood psychology tricks because it doesn't look like a trick at all. It looks like patience. It looks like confidence. It looks like a man who knows his value without announcing it. And when she feels that, the fear that made her retreat starts to soften. She realizes the closeness didn't cost her freedom. It didn't overwhelm her. It didn't trap her. That's when she returns, often warmer than before, more open than before, because now the connection feels safe instead of threatening. This is how to fall in love without forcing it. This is how attraction deepens instead of collapsing under pressure. Understand this moment, handle it with calm authority, and you won't just keep her interest, you'll create the emotional space where real connection can grow. Sign number 8, she stays. Sign number 8 is the quiet one, the sign that doesn't scream but speaks volumes if you know how to listen. And it's this: she stays. Despite the push and pull, despite the moments where her warmth fades and returns, despite the mixed signals that confuse most men, she doesn't vanish. she still responds. She still checks in. She still finds small, almost effortless ways to remain in your orbit. That matters. A woman who is truly done doesn't linger. She doesn't circle back. She doesn't leave doors cracked open. She closes the chapter and moves on. But a woman who is invested, even if she's unsure, even if she's managing fear, finds reasons to stay connected when things feel complicated. That cycle of pulling back and then reaching out isn't randomness. It's the emotional rhythm of someone falling while trying not to fall too fast. It's like standing at the edge of deep water, stepping in, stepping out, testing the temperature, wanting the experience but respecting the depth. Don't confuse hesitation with indifference. That is the mistake most men make, and it costs them everything. Now comes the most important part, because recognizing the signs without responding correctly is like reading a map and then walking in the wrong direction. Understanding alone won't help you. Action will. And here's the counterintuitive truth that separates a high-value man from everyone else. First, stay consistent. Don't mirror her emotional swings. Don't become warmer when she's warm and colder when she pulls back. Be predictably solid. Same tone, same calm, same grounded confidence whether she's leaning in or taking space. That is masculine energy at its most attractive. Consistency doesn't mean being available every minute of the day. Don't misunderstand that. It means emotional stability. It means she knows what version of you she's going to get every time. That reliability creates safety, and safety is what allows attraction to deepen instead of collapsing under uncertainty. Second, give her space without disappearing. Space isn't silence. Silence feels like punishment. Space is the absence of pressure. It's letting conversations breathe. It's not demanding clarity on a timeline. It's trusting the process instead of forcing outcomes. Be present, but not hovering. Interested, but not intrusive. Let things develop naturally. Security isn't built through intensity. It's built through time, through repeated experiences that feel calm and respectful. When you understand this, you stop trying to attract women through urgency and start attracting them through presence. That shift alone changes everything. Third, don't take her distance personally. This is critical. Her pulling back isn't a verdict on your worth. It's her processing emotions she may not have expected to feel so strongly. Don't turn her inner process into a personal rejection. When you don't punish her for needing space, when you don't withdraw affection or change your demeanor out of frustration, you become different from every man before you. That difference is powerful. That is where trust quietly forms. She realizes she doesn't have to manage your emotions on top of her own. She can step back without losing you. That realization lowers her defenses more than any clever line ever could. Fourth, keep building your life. This cannot be overstated. Your purpose cannot become decoding her behavior, analyzing her texts, or waiting for emotional cues. You must have a life that moves forward with or without her. Work, passions, health, friendships, direction. This is what defines a high-value man, not how much attention he gives, but how full his life already is. And here's the paradox that feels almost unfair until you see it work. The less you seek her validation, the more she wants to offer it. When you're fulfilled, you stop grasping. When you stop grasping, she feels free to choose you instead of feeling pulled. That freedom is magnetic. That's how you attract women without chasing them. Be clear about this. Masculine energy isn't loud, it isn't forceful, it's steady, it's contained. It's knowing who you are and where you're going and inviting her to walk alongside you, not dragging her there. Don't rush the outcome. Don't demand certainty while she's still discovering her feelings. Be patient but not passive. Be confident but not rigid. Show her through your actions that staying connected to you feels easy, not heavy. That is how attraction matures into something real. If she stays, if she remains in your orbit even when things feel uncertain, pay attention. That's not confusion. That's courage in progress. Your job isn't to fix her fear. Your job is to be steady enough that fear doesn't have to drive her decisions. When you do that, when you hold your ground with calm assurance, you become the man she doesn't need to pull away from anymore. And that's when staying turns into choosing. Hey, my friend, thanks for staying with me till the end. Here's the truth, plain and simple. If she's showing these signs, she's already invested, maybe deeper than she's ready to admit. And that pullback you feel? That's not a lack of interest. That's fear talking. Your job is not to chase answers, push for labels, or demand clarity. Your job is to stay solid, be consistent, be calm, be the kind of man who doesn't get shaken by mixed signals or emotional noise. That kind of strength builds trust without saying a word. When you show up grounded and steady, you don't have to convince her of anything. She feels safe with you, and when a woman feels safe, everything changes naturally. If this spoke to you, comment "invested" below so I know you're really paying attention. And make sure you subscribe, because this is just the beginning of psychology that actually works.